Do you recognize this flag? Yes, correct. It's a North Korean flag, and the music that you are hearing at the moment is one of the North Korean song named Defend the Headquarter of Revolution. What do you know so far about North Korea? It's definitely not this one, but more of this one. Most of the people have very little imagination or information about North Korea. Well, let me share some basic information about North Korea. North Korea, which is also known as Democratic People's Republic of Korea, locates in East Asia, constituting the northern part of Korean Peninsula. Pyongyang is the nation capital and the largest city. To the north and northwest of the country is bordered by China and by Russia along the Amnok and Tumen rivers. It is bordered to the south by South Korea with the heavily fortified Korean Demilitarized Zone, which is also known as DMS, separating the two. The history between North Korea and South Korea is complicated. We will not discuss about it right now, but maybe next time. Long story short, both countries don't have good bilateral relationship, and until now their status is in the Cold War. North Korea is one of the world's last hardline communist nations. It officially describes itself as a self-reliant socialist state due to its totalitarian dictatorship. Since its creation in 1948, North Korea has been extremely hostile toward Western nations, especially United States, and has isolated itself from most of the world. The fall of communism in Eastern Europe in 1989 and the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 has deprived North Korea of many important allies and trading markets. The supreme leader of North Korea is Kim Jong-un. The official language of North Korea is Korean, and the number of inhabitants estimated in 2015 is 25,155,317. Furthermore, North Korea is an atheist state with no official religion and where public religion is discouraged. Instead, North Korea follows cult of personality ruled by the Kim family that has existed in North Korea for decades. The citizens of North Korea are encouraged to worship the supreme leader as their god. The long regime of supreme leader has systematically violated human rights, including freedom of thoughts, expression and religion, freedom from discrimination, freedom of movement and residence, and the right to food. The state was also found to have committed crimes against humanity, including extermination, murder, enslavement, torture, imprisonment, rape, forced abortion, and other sexual violence, persecution on political, religious, racial, and gender grounds, the enforced disappearance of persons, and the inhuman act of knowingly causing prolonged starvation. So, that's all the basic knowledge you need to know about North Korea before we dive deeper into the real topic. Have you been wondering whether the tourism industry in North Korea exists? Yes, they do. In fact, the tourism industry, which categorized in service, has the second highest contribution for the GDP of the country. In this video, I'm going to discuss specifically the tourism industry of North Korea. The rising trend of humanitarian crisis in North Korea is hard to be ignored. The video that I'm going to show you will discuss of topic about the humanitarian crisis in North Korea and how tourism industry plays a big role to influence this trend. Would you be interested to visit North Korea? Honestly, I would. It might sound crazy visiting the most mysterious, secretive, and isolated country in the world without any guarantee that you will be able to go in or out of the country. But, as the famous quote by James Stevens states, curiosity will conquer fear more than bravery will. I do believe it's true. In fact, the number of tourists visiting the country is gradually increasing, even though still small and most in careful coordinated package holidays. The surprising fact is, North Korea wants to attract 10 times as many tourists to the country in just 2 years, taking the total to 1 million visitors. The country currently welcomes 100,000 tourists a year, the majority of which come from neighboring China. But in tourism drive sanctioned by Kim Jong-un, this figure will reach 1 million by 2017 and 2 by 2020. The country is targeting potential tourists in countries who have good relationship with North Korea, such as Russia, China, and Southeast Asian countries. The number of inbound travelers grew largely again in 2014, mainly contributed by visitors from China, as Chinese tourists have greater disposable income and are looking for holiday destinations. The allied neighboring country, which has strict restrictions, would be an exciting place to visit. Apart from joining tour groups, many Chinese companies are also rewarding their employees with such holiday destinations. If the North Korean government continues to support tourism, Chinese tourists are likely to continue flocking to see this close country as an exciting holiday trip. Foreign visitors are expected to increase, but at a slower rate compared to Chinese tourists. Despite being a closed country, North Korea is still looking at tourism to help bring in more foreign earnings. The tourism board does have a basic website despite the tight internet control, which provides information on major events in North Korea and simple introduction for places of interest. Furthermore, with the tight regime in North Korea, many decisions can be made by one man overnight. Restrictions can be put in place that affect tourists, such as the banning of visitors or not holding events which tourists have been yearning to watch. Due to the tight security, visitors are also advised not to wander around on their own, as they might cause suspicion to the military. Although the North Korean government would like to encourage more foreign exchange from tourism, more needs to be done to improve the facilities such as airport and runways. Although the new international terminal at Sunan Airport was completed in July 2011, it is said to be understaffed. The second terminal of the international airport is still under construction and no date of completion had been announced at the end of the review period. After all of this interesting information regarding the tourism in North Korea, the ethical question arises. Is it ethically right to visit North Korea since the money generated from the tourism industry does not support the local community? Instead, all the revenue goes toward the fund of North Korean regime, which ironically means that the tourists actually contribute to the creation of nuclear weapons and missiles. and how the tourism industry influenced the humanitarian crisis in North Korea. The debate regarding the appropriateness of tourism in North Korea has been going around for years. Some people believe that visiting North Korea is unethical due to the fact that tourism in North Korea serves only to the prolonged life of the North Korean regime. To this day, the regime strives to maintain its luxury lifestyle from tourism revenues, while other people believe that tourism in North Korea helps to raise awareness about the horrifying truth of the life in North Korea and make the North Korean people realize how far behind they are compared to the rest of the world. One adds that it is a good opportunity for the locals to meet foreigners since they have been separated and isolated from the outside world for decades. Before discussing this topic any further, I would like to analyze the tourism industry in North Korea from three different perspectives. Namely, the perspective of private tourism industry, the perspective of tourists and locals, and lastly, the perspective of policymakers. First of all, the perspective of private tourism industry such as tour operators, accommodation, and transportation. Did you know that you cannot travel to North Korea independently? Tourist travel in North Korea is only possible as part of a guided tour. It is organized by one of several state-owned tourism bureaus including Korea International Travel Company, KITC, Korean International Sports Travel Company, KISTC, Korean International Taekwondo Tourism Company, KITTC, and Korean International Yacht Travel Company known as KIYTC. There are only 30 tour operators all over the world who specialize organizing trips to North Korea. No matter which company you decided to book with, all tours are hosted on the ground of North Korean-owned travel companies. In addition, mostly you will be traveling in groups, but of course you can hire a private tour guide if you hate traveling in groups. The average number of tourists per group each company takes will vary considerably. So, you may want to ask about this before booking a trip to North Korea. Tourism in North Korea is highly controlled by the government, and only about 1,500 Western tourists allowed to visit North Korea each year. Furthermore, the citizens of South Korea are normally not permitted to visit North Korea. In addition, there have been reports of difficulties regarding Israeli, American, and Japanese nationals. Most people traveling to North Korea will travel through Beijing, but you can also enter North Korea through Ryazan or Namyang via Yanjing, China, or Domgangang City via Kazan, Russia. The duration of the trip ranging from 3 days until maximum 10 days. The offered price is from €900 until €3,000 per person. Indeed, it's not a budget holiday. Furthermore, your tour guides will take your passport and keep it during your stay in North Korea, or at least for the first couple of days of your tour. They said it's for a security reasons, or simply because your entry and exit dates must be registered. All the cars you see are owned by institutions, some companies and certain public unions. Some belongs to athletes and movie stars and Korean politicians who left the country and come back. Cars like these are privileged gifts, but normal people cannot buy a car. It has to be a gift from a country. Are you wondering how the hotel looks like in North Korea? Hotel in North Korea looks decent, with a touch of North Korean design. However, indeed, There is one eye-popping building which is considered as a hotel, but it never opened, even though the construction began in 1987. This unique hotel is named Rungyong Hotel, or also known as 105 buildings, which is referred to its number of floors. The Rungyong Hotel is an finished 100-story building that has been planned as a mixed-use development which would include a hotel. These 330 meters tall pyramid-shaped scapers remain unopened and has been called as the tallest unfinished building in the world. Not only that, North Korean hotels are classified into different standards according to North Korean ratings. The concept of star is not used even though there is an equivalent way to rate the quality of the accommodation in North Korea. Luxury hotels are equivalent of 5-star hotels, even though there is one hotel that is above this range, the Hyangsang Hotel. The first-class hotels are the equivalent of 4-star hotels, and second-class hotels are equivalent of 3-star hotels. There are 9 hotels in Pyongyang and 14 hotels located in provincial cities and 2 hotels in recession-free economic zone. Furthermore, according to TripAdvisor reviews, as well as blog websites and YouTube channel, the hotels in North Korea have received many complaints from the guests of the hotels due to the underrated service and facilities provided by the hotels. By far, you may also wondering how to travel within the country. Is there any public transportation, or is it even possible to rent a car? The answer is yes and no. Yes, there are different types of public transportation in North Korea, and no, you cannot rent a car by your own. As I already mentioned before, that you do not have a freedom of movement in North Korea. All your transport needs will be taken care of by your tour operator company. Most of the time, this means buses. If you are traveling in a small group, it's also possible to travel or walk through some areas of Pyongyang with some travel agents. Besides, usually the tour operators also arrange a trip to ride a metro in Pyongyang, so the tourists have a chance to blend in with the locals. The North Korean metro is known as the deepest underground system in the world. Special forms of transportation in North Korea, such as trams and trolley buses in Pyongyang, can be chartered through the tour operator. But use of any other form of local public transportation is generally impossible. Furthermore, due to the full constraint and the near absence of private automobiles, have relegated road transportation to a secondary role. Automobile transportation is further restricted by a series of regulations. According to North Korean exile Kim Ji-ho, unless a driver receives a special permit, it is forbidden to drive alone, which means that the driver must carry passengers. Other permits needed are military mobilization permit, a certificate of driver training, a fuel validity document, and a mechanical certificate. All the cars you see are owned by the institution, some companies, and certain public unions. Some belongs to athletes and movie stars, and Korean politicians who left the country and come back. Cars like these are privileged gift, but normal people cannot buy a car. It has to be a gift from the country. Moreover, the Korean State Railways is the only rail operator in North Korea. Because of the lack of maintenance on the rail infrastructure and vehicles, the travel time by rail is increasing. There is only one class on the international train between Beijing and Pyongyang. It can be booked at the station in Beijing, but reservations must be made several days in advance. Your tour agency will usually do this for you, unless you are traveling on work purpose. There is also a direct rail link into Russia, crossing the North Korean and Russian border at Tumangang, Kasan. This trip takes 9 days. North Korean officers come into the train to check the passport and give it to the tour guide. Furthermore, they also do a manual check of the entire luggage and will also ask you to look at some of the photos taken in North Korea. Immigration procedure in North Korea side are taken on the train or before boarding to the bus. Taking picture from the train was initially not permitted, although there has been some slight flexibility regarding this. Taking the train offers an excellent chance to be able to mingle with North Koreans of all walks of life who will be going to and return from China. Having small size of group too also means that the chance of sharing your compartment with local North Koreans are much higher, which offer a unique chance to make North Korean friends. Air Koryo and Air China fly into and out of North Korea. Many travelers see the Air Koryo flight as a key part of the beginning of their North Korean experience. And this is tangible as soon as they step on the aircraft, such as listening to propaganda music, seeing the retro decoration and mystical folk, and reading a copy of Pyongyang Times. The only other airlines with scheduled service to North Korea is Air China, a member of Star Airlines, which flies 3 times weekly from Beijing to Pyongyang. Neither Aeroflot or China Southern continue to fly to North Korea anymore. In this section, I'm going to discuss tourism in North Korea from the tourist and locals' point of view. From the perspective of tourists, there are several blogs and YouTube videos that can be found on the internet explaining about the trips to North Korea. Based on those blogs and YouTube videos, I can make a conclusion that the most common need of the tourists visiting North Korea is to be physically and politically safe and be able to return back to their home country. Most of the people are afraid to take a risk to travel to North Korea due to unstable political situation and the recent nuclear war threat. In addition, I would like to also share the experience of my friend Malte, who has visited North Korea. In the next video that I'm about to show you, he will explain his experience traveling to North Korea as well as his opinion regarding the ethical issue.
Hi there, I'm Malte and I went to North Korea in 2013. And the reason for that was, on the one hand, that I've got 2 travel buddies and we like to see different places where we assume that people think differently than we do, and on the other hand, maybe society works in a different way than in our country. And the other aspect for us was that on New Year's Eve 2012, so 3 months before we went, Kim Jong-un announced that he wanted to open up the country, and then we reckoned then the country would change quite a lot. So we booked a flight before he could do so, and actually the whole situation changed quite rapidly, because then in March he ended the peace agreement with South Korea, and technically the 2 Koreas were at war again. Anyway, my experience was exciting. We landed there on my birthday actually, and it was like traveling back in time, because that's what I would imagine going back to Hitler Germany would be like. As you probably know, we weren't able to move freely, but we were always picked up by 2 guides. And we were pretty lucky with those guides because they were our age. One of them was 24 and the other one was 26. And we could talk to them about everything. They were very open and very friendly, and also they had a great sense of humor, I'd say. The only thing we couldn't talk to them about was the fact that Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-il were godlike, and they had created everything, and they were outstanding figures in history. There was no doubt for them about that. But they said, yeah, we know that we are, economically spoken, we are very poor, and you've got more technology in your country, but that's fair enough. We, the North Koreans, have the right mindset. And we stayed in Pyongyang for a while, and we went to the mountains in the north, and we also went to Kaesong and the DMZ. And it was absolutely interesting. I have never seen anything like that before, because it was so different from Germany and from all the other countries I've seen so far, and I've traveled quite a lot. We always had to take our bows in front of statues, and we had to follow very specific rules regarding pictures of statues and pictures of the great leaders. And we were kind of isolated because we couldn't really talk to North Koreans at all, and we were always picked up and brought to sites in order to see them, and his speeches about them and so on. And nevertheless, we didn't feel imprisoned or anything. We rather felt that they tried to show us the most beautiful perspective onto their country, of course. Of course, our guides weren't critical or anything. They just stuck to the official text, to the official textbook. But the experiences we had were outstanding. For example, when we drove up to the Friendship Museum, the International Friendship Museum, or whatever it's called, it started to snow, and they hadn't planned for that. So on the way to that International Friendship Museum, there were only 2 cars on the whole 170 kilometers motorway. And then we were snowed in, and we had to stay longer than we had planned for, and we went into a big hotel where the power had gone, and it was only lit by candles, and we had to find our way to the restaurant only using candles. And it was quite funny, actually. And on the way back, 2,000 or even 3,000 people, farmers mostly, had cleared the motorway, or at least one lane, of the snow. They'd swept away the snow so we could pass with our coach. I've never seen anything like that. They only had, some of them had shovels, but the others just had boards to clear away the snow. It was crazy. Yeah, I could talk more about my specific experiences if you want, and what we did and what we saw, but generally I'd say for me as a tourist, it was a great experience, not for leisure, but rather in terms of seeing a very interesting out of space place, and to learn about politics and about, most importantly, about daily life in North Korea. So I think your other question was the ethical issue. And we talked about that quite a lot, because our friends, and especially our parents, were not very happy with our decision to go to North Korea, and asked whether we were safe on the one hand, but on the other hand also whether we really wanted to support the North Korean regime with our money that we bring into the country. And we discussed that, and then we thought there are not many countries that are left if you start to ask that question. For example, if you go to the US, you also go to a state where there's death penalty, for example, and there are many political issues in the US that I wouldn't support. Of course, that's not a fair comparison because the US is not a dictatorship or anything. It's very much like Germany, probably. But so that wasn't really the question for us, whether we support the government there, also because it's very little money that we brought into the country. It's not as if we sold them anything or they sold us anything except for tickets and hotels and transfers. So yeah, we didn't think that was really important. And then friends also asked us whether it's not a bit too much like going to a zoo and looking at people who are poor, like catastrophe tourism. I do understand that, but then again, we also felt that our presence there made people quite happy. They waved at us, and even though we couldn't communicate verbally, we were always greeted very friendly, and we felt that everybody was very curious to see us. It wasn't like they thought we were tourists who are there to look at them and laugh about their problems or their lifestyle or their daily life or anything like that. And also after that we thought that's an illusion, but while we stayed there we thought, wow, we can talk so openly, so frankly to our guides that they must somehow understand our way of living and our philosophy and our values, and some of it must rub off onto them. Of course, that's not true. I mean, we weren't there to bring democracy to North Korea or anything. But fair enough, that's what we felt when we were there. So after that, we've also been to other countries like Iran and Russia and Azerbaijan and other countries where you might think that the same question would arise, but for us, that's not an issue. All the best from Germany. Bye.
Furthermore, the tourism in North Korea from the perspective of locals is difficult to find due to the fact that there are not many North Korean people are lucky to be able to have a chance to talk publicly. However, I have found a website in which the defectors of North Korea were gathered and asked about their personal opinion regarding the tourism in North Korea. The Guardian News gathered 10 North Korean defectors and interviewed them. Based on the interviews, 2 out of 10 defectors agree that tourism in North Korea is positive, due to the fact that tourism in North Korea will help North Korean citizens realize how behind they are from the rest of the world from both political and economic perspective. Another argument is tourism in North Korea gives the North Korean citizen opportunities to meet foreigners, and the defectors also believe that being in contact with foreigners is important since North Koreans have been separated and isolated from the outside world for a very long time. But some organizations opted to cease their operations when North Korean restrictions become too onerous. So, what do you think about the tourism industry in North Korea? Would you support it or against it? I personally think I would support the tourism industry in North Korea. I believe that the more people visiting North Korea, the world is more aware that the human crisis in North Korea do exist. Looking back to 5 to 10 years ago, I do not even know that there are approximately 25 million people in North Korea who still live in totalitarian state, who have totally no interaction or access to the outside world, or even access to the basic human rights. Thanks to those journalists and tourists who have visited North Korea and reported the real living condition in North Korea without any contamination of propaganda media. Now we can easily access this information on the internet freely. I believe as more people are aware regarding this issue, the more people are determined to end this North Korean regime. Governments and non-profit organizations shall work together to end North Korean regime by asking people to signing petition or demonstration against North Korea. I believe that North Korean crisis could end without killing any innocent people or starting a nuclear war. There is a peaceful way to end the North Korean crisis. For example, by creating a diplomatic resolution of the crisis. Furthermore, Chinese government need to be pushed to stop ignoring the international counter-proliferation financing regime, which is designed to sanction North Korean entities that are funneling cash to its weapon of mass destruction programs. Chinese government needs to cooperate with the rest of the world to stop North Korean human crisis. We have to be united together with the other nations in order to end the North Korean regime. Of course, you don't need to be an important person in the government in order to help to end the humanitarian crisis in North Korea. You can simply raise awareness regarding this issue to other people so they are more informed and aware about this issue. So, do not stop to share your knowledge to the other people and help to save North Korean from humanitarian crisis. Thank you very much for your time and I hope you enjoy my speech. Goodbye.